Learning English doesn't have to feel like school. You don't need to sit with a textbook for hours or stress over grammar drills. One of the most powerful, and enjoyable, ways to get better at English is by simply listening to stories. That's because stories help you remember things naturally. You hear real sentences in real situations, and your brain picks up the language like a sponge, without even realizing it. So if you want to keep improving your English in a fun, relaxed way, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to Reeling, and ring the notification bell. You'll get new stories all the time, and each one is packed with useful language, all hidden inside unforgettable adventures. Now, get ready for a wild one, because today's story is about a guy named Mark, who made one simple mistake in Moscow and found himself in a very serious situation. Mark had always been fascinated by Russian architecture. The colorful domes, the wide plazas, the statues, the mystery, it all felt like something from a movie. So when he finally booked his trip to Moscow, the first place he wanted to visit was Red Square. He arrived in the city on a cold morning, the kind that makes your breath visible in the air. After dropping off his bag at a small hostel and grabbing a hot tea, he set off on foot with a map in his pocket and excitement in his chest. Red Square was even more impressive than he imagined. The buildings were huge and heavy with history. The cobblestone ground stretched out like a giant rug. St. Basil's Cathedral stood at one end, looking like a box of candy with its twisted towers and bold colors. On the other side was the Kremlin, powerful and still, like a sleeping dragon. Mark took his time walking around, snapping photos, reading little plaques, and soaking in the atmosphere. There were tourists, of course, but also guards and fences and areas that looked less public. He followed a group of people who seemed to be heading toward an archway near one corner of the square. There were no big warning signs, no flashing lights. Just a narrow path that looked like part of the normal walking route. Mark, lost in the moment and enjoying the scene, simply kept going. Then he passed under the arch. And everything changed. Suddenly, the crowds were gone. The noise of tourists faded behind him. The air felt quieter, heavier. He found himself walking on a stone path between tall buildings with no other visitors in sight. Something felt off. He looked around and noticed that the few people nearby were wearing dark uniforms. They were standing very still, watching him. That's when the realization hit him. He was in a restricted area. His feet froze in place. One of the guards started walking toward him slowly, not aggressively, but with purpose. Mark's heart began to pound. He tried to stay calm, to look casual. Maybe he could just turn around and walk back out. But before he could take a step, the guard was already speaking to him, in Russian. Mark didn't understand a word. He held up his hands in a polite, nervous gesture. "Sorry," he said. "I didn't know. I'm just a tourist." The guard didn't look angry, but he also didn't smile. He pointed behind Mark, then made a gesture as if to say, "Come with me." Mark followed quietly, trying not to panic. His mind was racing. What if he had broken some serious law? What if this was a military zone? Would he be fined? Arrested? Sent home? They walked only a short distance before arriving at a small office near the gate. Another officer came out, asked him something, then switched to English. "Do you know where you are?" Mark shook his head slowly. "Not really. This is not a public area. I'm really sorry. I was following some other people. I thought it was part of the square." The officer looked at him for a moment, then asked for his passport. Mark handed it over with shaky fingers. The officer glanced at it, then handed it back. "This time, okay. But don't come here again." Mark nodded quickly. "Thank you." "Yes, of course." He was guided back to the main part of the square, where the other tourists were walking and laughing and taking pictures, completely unaware of how intense things had just gotten for him. He sat down on a stone bench and let out a long breath. He hadn't meant to cross any lines. He hadn't jumped a fence or broken a lock. He had just followed the path, distracted by the beauty of the place, and found himself in the wrong spot at the wrong time. It was a simple mistake. But in a place like Red Square, where history and politics live side by side, even a simple mistake can feel like a very big deal. Later that night, Mark told the story to a group of other travelers at the hostel. They listened with wide eyes and nervous laughs. He ended the story with a grin. "So yeah, I accidentally wandered into a restricted area next to the Kremlin. And somehow, I lived to tell the tale." What's amazing is that while you were enjoying this wild moment with Mark, you were also learning English. You picked up useful phrases like "lost in the moment," "realization hit him," "held up his hands," and "found himself in the wrong spot at the wrong time." These are the kinds of expressions that make your English sound natural, and now you know them without even trying. That's the power of stories. They teach you the way real people speak, in a way that sticks with you. So if you liked this story, do 3 simple things: like the video, subscribe to Reeling, and ring the bell so you're the first to know when the next adventure drops. And here's your task: drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever wandered somewhere you weren't supposed to be? Gotten lost? Had a travel mix-up that turned into a memory? We want to hear your story.